It may seem very obvious to feel your emotions. For a lot of us who deal with dissociation, sometimes doing the most obvious thing is actually the most difficult. We tend to over-intellectualize our emotions and our experience instead of actually living in our experience and feeling our emotions. We're addicted to this need to constantly work on something, to constantly fix ourselves as if we're broken. This video isn't about self-improvement. It's about the importance of being present. Presence over self-improvement. I want to discuss 5 things that have really helped me that can hopefully help you if you feel emotionally connected to these things. If they're not for you, don't do them. The first thing is connecting with your senses. The second thing I want to talk about is embracing your flaws. The third point I would like to make is big up yourself. Get a little cocky, be in your bag, talk your shit. A fourth point I would like to make is that you have to be honest with yourself about where you are in this moment. Sometimes I wake up and I feel like shit. Sometimes I wake up and I feel like I am the shit. Lastly, I want to just say to live your life. Have fun. Take the risks. Try new things. Look dumb. There's nothing like just getting in the world and living your life. I swear I've learned the best lessons from just living my life. What's good, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. In today's video, I want to talk about how being addicted to self-improvement is actually holding us back. It's so easy to get stuck in a pattern of over-consuming self-improvement content instead of turning inward and figuring out what we actually need. Sitting within the body, sitting within our emotions, sitting within our experience can bring about a lot of discomfort, and we don't want to feel uncomfortable. So instead of sitting in our bodies, we'll just overconsume. We'll watch a YouTube video, we'll listen to a podcast, we'll read a book, whatever it is we need to feel like, okay, at the end of this, I feel good, I feel better about myself. But do you actually feel better? Or do you feel like you've maybe just over-intellectualized your experience instead of, I don't know, feeling it? I'm not here to judge or beat up on you because trust me, I was definitely there. And sometimes I still definitely get caught up in that whole cycle. People with high functioning anxiety or high functioning depression, we tend to over intellectualize our emotions and our experience instead of actually living in our experience and feeling our emotions. And this is something I definitely had to get called out on by my own therapist because I was very guilty of telling him the things that he wanted to hear, telling him the things that I wanted to hear, telling him the things that sounded right and felt right because, hell, I thought I was improving. Instead of actually improving, instead of actually growing, I was under this false illusion of growth because I could explain myself so well that I didn't need to actually heal. I could just convince myself that I was healed. And to be honest, that's a detriment to no one other than ourselves. And yes, it may seem very obvious to feel your emotions, but for a lot of us who deal with dissociation and not feeling like we're in our bodies, sometimes doing the most obvious thing is actually the most difficult. It's easier said than done, right? It's easier to say the words, it's easier to consume the words than it is to actually apply the thing. I used to really struggle with consuming more than actually applying and living in that applied knowledge and that applied wisdom. And you may be sitting there thinking, isn't it a bit contradictory for me to be sitting here on YouTube talking about how you're over-consuming content on the internet or in books about self-improvement? Yes, it is absolutely contradicting, but 2 things could be true. Yes, I may be a bit contradicting, but this video isn't about self-improvement. It's about the importance of being present. It's about the importance of being within our bodies. Presence over self-improvement. Healing isn't always about the lessons that we learn. Sometimes it's literally just about the awareness that we gain. Being able to be connected, mind, body, and spirit in a physical and metaphysical sense is very challenging. If you're someone who's constantly starting new routines or starting new habits and forming new habits, but never actually seeing them through and then feeling like, damn, is something wrong with me? Or damn, is something wrong with this routine? I still feel stuck. I still feel the same. I don't feel any different. And I've been doing a morning routine and doing a night routine, doing my skincare and going to the gym and drinking my water and all these things that you see people doing on the internet. But it's not about doing the things for the aesthetic. It's about figuring out what you personally need, and then developing an emotional attachment to those needs so that doing them isn't about checking things off of a list. And don't get me wrong, I love to check a list. I am a list checker. But more than checking the list, I want to actually feel the impact. And I don't want to seem like I'm bashing the internet, right? Because I love TikTok, I love Instagram. I love that we can come on here and share our experiences and connect with one another that we may not have otherwise found out in the physical world. But just as important as it is to be able to connect with and learn from and be entertained by the internet, it's also important to like be in reality, right? Be in the real world, be in our experiences, interact with others, interact with ourselves, and see what it is that we actually need, see what it is that we actually want, see what it is that's in our hearts, see how our body's responding when we're within certain environments, how our body's responding when we're around certain people. There's this phrase that when life is peaceful, we mistake it for boredom. When life is at ease, when things are naturally coming to us, we tend to get bored, right? Because there's no friction, there's no drama, there's no entertainment, there's nothing to complain about, nothing to spill the tea on. Instead of actually enjoying that peace, we're sitting there anxious, waiting for the other shoe to drop because this is too good to be true. There's no way that without doing anything, I'm deserving and receiving of all these good things. But when we're in our bodies and when we're connected to our intuition, it's very easy for things to just gravitate towards us as if we're like a magnet. But really, we're just in our receptive energy. And that is okay. Sometimes it's okay for life to be easy. Sometimes it's okay for life to be simple and basic and boring as fuck. It's almost like we are addicted to the struggle. We're addicted to the drama, we're addicted to the struggle. We're addicted to this need to constantly work on something, to constantly fix ourselves as if we're broken. Healing isn't about fixing ourselves, right? Because there's nothing broken about us. Healing is just about figuring out the spaces and experiences and habits of ours that maybe once worked for us but no longer do. It's about growing and finding what we actually need. And I'm not perfect. I don't have it all together. I don't got life figured out. I am learning just as you are, but I want to share my experience with you in case it can help. And what inspired me to talk about this a little bit is I ran into this girl over the weekend and she was telling me about her experience with panic attacks. And I am no stranger to panic attacks. There was a time where I was dealing with panic attacks so often, I just felt like that was my normal. Like, I have panic attacks, I have panic anxiety, and that is just what it is. Like, there's not really anything I could do about it. But to be on the other side of this coin and to not experience panic attacks as frequently, if at all, at this phase in my life, I wanted to use the things that I felt helped me to help her. And that made me realize that the things that I'm learning along my journey can be helpful to others who are not quite at that phase in their journey yet. And it doesn't make me any better than you or anybody else. It just means that this is where I'm at in my journey and it could potentially help others because there are definitely people who are in places of their journey in life that aren't quite where I am emotionally or mentally or spiritually that I definitely learn and gain from. But I want to take it beyond just the aesthetics and things that you can do that look good and that everybody's doing on the internet. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to repeat things that you've probably heard and have seen. It just means that I want to talk about the importance of that emotional attachment to doing these things and incorporating these habits than the actual habit themselves. Being in the now, being present actually lifts the weight off of our shoulders. It actually helps us feel like, wow, life isn't really so overwhelming because I don't have to obsess about all of the details of my past or where I'm going in the future. I can just be here now in this moment, and that's enough. Like, that is good enough, and it is. And that could be hard to do. Being present can also be a privilege, right? Because some of us just don't have the time to be present. We're constantly just go, 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 go. But it's important to fit in those moments of stillness wherever we can, whether we can squeeze it in the morning, squeeze it in during a bathroom break, during a lunch break, at night, right before bed, while we're in the shower. It's okay to combine and layer these tasks because you can't always sit down for 20 minutes and meditate and feel in your body and get connected and do this yoga and do all these things. That's not always available to everybody. Sometimes you have to compound tasks. If I realize I hadn't prayed for the day, I'll take a few moments while I'm in the shower to pray. And that is something I subscribe to. Obviously, everybody doesn't pray, so that's not what I'm telling you to do. I'm telling you that it's okay to not have to do things separately. It's okay to do things together sometimes. So, I want to discuss 5 things that have really helped me that can hopefully help you if you feel emotionally connected to these things. If they're not for you, don't do them, okay? Don't do them if they're not for you. This is just what worked for me, and hopefully, maybe it could work for you too. The first thing is connecting with your senses. It's so important to connect with your sense of sight, your sense of sound, your sense of smell, your sense of touch, sound, and just being in your body. I've found that grounding myself in sensory experiences help me remain present. Like whenever I find that I'm dwelling on the past or being anxious about the future, I think about what I can see around me. I think about what I can hear around me. I think about what the room or what the air smells like. I think about what I can touch with my hand. Whatever is tangible helps bring me back into the moment. And taking it even a step further, if you have access to this, it's really good to ground yourself in something like dirt or grass or sand or just some part of the earth. I live in New York City, right? I live in Brooklyn. I live in a fourth floor walk up apartment. I don't have access to a backyard. My roof is some kind of hot ass gravel that, doesn't feel good to stand barefoot on. I'm damn sure not going to be standing barefoot in on the concrete. I go to the beach once a week whenever the weather is nice enough. And I don't mean it needs to be warm like beach weather. Like it can be sweatsuit and a coat weather, but I like to put my bare feet in the sand. And when I can't make it that far, I like to go to whatever public park I have access to and plant my bare feet in the grass. Obviously, this is harder during the winter months, but you can just as easily plant your bare feet on your hardwood floors. That is, if obviously you have hardwood floors, but even if you don't have hardwood floors, the concept is still the same. Take your shoes off and let your feet feel the bare ground, whatever bare ground you have accessible to you, whatever you feel comfortable with. It's something so grounding about feeling stable in your bare feet. When you're connected to your physical senses, it's easier to feel how your body's reacting. Do I need to be in this place? Do I need to be around these people? Do I need to be doing this activity? It's also easier to listen to what your heart wants. I think the biggest misconception about the heart is that it's super emotional and not rational at all. But our heart is very smart, first of all. Our heart is extremely intelligent and it knows exactly what we need. So sometimes just being connected to that heart as an organ and not just like this emotional thing is helpful in figuring out exactly what you need in that moment, what your body wants in that moment, right? Because the heart is what's pumping blood through our body. So it would make sense that listening to our heart is connected to the rest of us. When you sit in silence, what do you feel called to do? In that moment, what happens when you just give yourself even 30 seconds, 60 seconds of silence? What does your body tell you to do? I like to, before I make a big decision, or if there's something that I'm kind of confused about or stuck in between on the fence of and don't really know what to or not to do, I ask myself, I say, body, X, Y, whatever. And then I take like a 30 seconds, or if you don't want to count the seconds, you could just take 3 deep breaths. And however your body feels about it, that's how you react. Hey, body, should I go hang out with this friend? Take those deep breaths, see how your body is reacting. If it's a little tense, a little uncomfortable, a little anxious, maybe that's not what you should be doing. And maybe it's not about the friend. Maybe that's just not what your body needs right now. Maybe you just have to decline that experience and catch up with them the next time because you really need to focus on something else. It's important to notice how our habits make us feel. So the things that we do on a daily, consistent basis, whether they're good or bad, how do they make you feel? That'll kind of give you answers on Should I be doing this? Should I continue doing this? Or should I let this go? And when you let something go, sometimes you could just let it go, but sometimes you can replace it with something else. Sometimes replacing it with something else is easier than going cold turkey. The second thing I want to talk about is embracing your flaws, right? Because with self improvement, like I said, we tend to see ourselves as broken or projects and things that need to be fixed. But if you embrace your flaws or your insecurities and the things that really make you you, but the things that are maybe less desirable to you, it makes it easier to focus on what you need to do or not do in order to improve upon those flaws, right? But it's okay, number one, to be flawed. We're all flawed. We're literal human beings figuring out life for the first time. So none of us is perfect. None of us have it all together. None of us have it figured out. You're your age for the first time. You're in this experience literally for the first time. So embrace the fact that you are going to be a flawed being. Period. You're never going to be perfect, and that is okay. I think if you can start there and just accept that, okay, I have some flaws. Sometimes there are some things I'm insecure about. That's okay. I don't need to fix every insecurity of mine. I don't need to fix every flaw. 9 times out of 10, anyways, we're just being overcritical about things that we don't even need to be critical about. We're our own worst critic. The things that we think about ourselves, 9 times out of 10, other people aren't even thinking about us, right? The things that we question about ourselves don't even cross the minds of people. Is it a flaw or is it just a quirk? Something that's unique to you, that makes you you, that maybe isn't super common. Maybe you don't have a lot of people in your inner circle or have a lot of people in your neighborhood that have the same kind of quirks that you do. So you see them as flaws or something to be insecure about. But it's okay to embrace those unique qualities that are just yours. I saw Pharrell launching his biopic and he's doing it as a Lego movie. I'm sure when he proposed that idea, it was like, huh? What? But in the trailer, he talks about how he was different as a child, and people used to tell him how different he was, but they would do it in a way that was negative. And so he started seeing his unique gifts as flaws. But look at him now. Imagine if Pharrell just decided to see all those unique gifts as flaws, listen to all the naysayers and outside voices as truths of his own, and just continuously critique himself about that. We wouldn't have some of the most amazing music that we have in history today, period. Period. We wouldn't have the musical genius that is Pharrell. Life should not be a constant loop of self improvement, right? There is no destination that we're looking to go to. This is a lifelong journey. But it's also important to remember that a part of the journey is pleasure and joy, and that we should be actually enjoying ourselves. When you find yourself critiquing yourself, just give yourself grace. Meet yourself with some compassion. It is okay. It happens. It happens to the best of us, the most healed of us, the wisest of us. We're, like I said, human, so sometimes we're going to backtrack a little bit, but meet yourself with compassion, extend yourself some grace, and remember that tomorrow is always a new day. This next hour is always a new moment. A third point I would like to make is big up yourself. Sometimes you just need to pat yourself on the back, get a little cocky, be in your bag, talk your shit. And this comes with being in our bodies, being present, right? Connected to our senses, embracing our flaws. The more that we embrace those quirks and just those little unique things about us, the easier it will be to just talk your shit and big up yourself. The easier it'll be to just be like, you know what? I'm actually fly as hell. I'm actually a bad bitch. Like, hold on for a second. I've actually come a long way. Let me just take a moment to dance, to celebrate, to have a little fun, to put on a little party for myself because I deserve. I think because of social media, we are confused about what it means to win or be successful, right? We see wins as these big flashy moments to celebrate, but sometimes wins are very small. Sometimes you only notice a win if you take time to see where you used to be and see where you are now. Sometimes you just got to take a step back and be like, wow, look at where I am. All that shit I used to talk about, all that shit I used to dream about, I'm actually doing. That is enough to celebrate. You deserve to celebrate yourself. And even if nobody else celebrates you, you got to celebrate you. What our minds focus on tends to be what we associate as true, right? So if we're focusing constantly on the negative aspects, constantly focusing on where we need to improve, that's all we'll see. That's all we'll know of ourselves. That's all we'll believe to be true. But if we focus on our wins, if we focus on the parts of our lives and ourselves that we want to celebrate and are worth celebrating, it shifts your perspective a bit, right? And you start feeling a bit more positive. You start feeling more pleasure. You start feeling more joy. You start actually believing that you are this amazing person because this is what you're constantly filling your mind with. And it's not to be delusional in a sense of like telling yourself lies, it is to rewrite the truths, rewrite the truths that you've taken on as truths that are probably not your truth, are probably truths that you've gotten from somebody else or from the outside world based on other people's limitations and other people's jaded experiences. A fourth point I would like to make is that you have to be honest with yourself about where you are in this moment. Sometimes I wake up and I feel like shit. Sometimes I wake up and I feel like I am the shit. Either way, however I wake up, I gotta be real with myself. I gotta honor wherever I am in the present moment because the more I can accept and be okay with how I feel, good or bad, negative or positive emotion, the easier it will be to just, like I said, be in my body and be present and not want to dissociate. The moment we start to dissociate is the moment where we don't want to accept how we feel in that moment. We don't like how we're feeling. We're uncomfortable about how we're feeling. So instead of dealing with those emotions, we separate ourselves from our body. We separate ourselves from our experience. We become a watcher of our lives. If you honor yourself wherever you are, no matter, like I said, if that's good or bad, it'll be so much easier to remain in your body, to learn how to dissociate a lot less. And coming from a chronic dissociator or someone who was once a chronic dissociator, I promise you, this is real. Like yesterday, I woke up feeling a little weird, but it was like, okay, whatever. Okay, whatever, push it to the side. Had a weird experience, started being hard on myself. It's like, okay, whatever, push it to the side. I pushed everything to the side so much, I ended up balled up in my bed, tears flowing, staring up at the clouds, like, what is my life? What is life coming to? But then I was just like, wait, whoa. After like I allowed myself to cry and everything, I felt myself starting to detach, starting to dissociate a little bit. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I can choose to sit in this and just dwell on this and become woe is me and be a victim of my life, or I can choose to respond differently. So instead, I took some deep breaths, I got out of bed, and I got into my journal and I just started writing. I just started writing about exactly how I was feeling, all the ugly emotions that were coming up. I just wrote them down. And as I wrote them down, I started to feel lighter, right? Because I'm getting that energy out. I'm letting that energy move through and then out of me. And then after that, I gave all that to God. I was like, God, please take all of these negative emotions that I'm feeling and bottling up and please take them. Please take this weight off my shoulders because I don't want to carry it and I don't need to. And that is what happened. And I can't say it was like, oof, instant, but I'd say definitely within that hour, you couldn't tell me that I was just in bed, balled up crying. You wouldn't even have known. I went to a cold plunge this weekend for the first time, like an ice bath where I sat in it for 3 minutes. And it was the most exhilarating experience ever. But one thing that the guiding coach Lauren was talking about is the fact that we have to feel our feelings, right? In order to kind of reset our nervous system, we have to feel it. But then as you feel it, before you get overwhelmed by it, take a breath. Take a breath, and that breath buys you a moment to respond instead of react. When I balled myself up in bed, that was just me reacting. I took some breaths, then I was able to get in my journal. Then I was able to talk to God. That was me responding. And the thing about responding is we have a choice. We get to choose how we want to respond to things. But when we allow ourselves to be super just reactive, it's like we remove that choice, right? So sometimes feelings can get overwhelming, but I promise you it's better to feel them than to not feel them. It's better to be honest about where you are than to lie to yourself because lying to yourself only hurts you in the long run. And what I realized from doing that cold plunge experience is that I actually reset my nervous system all the time. I constantly am putting myself in uncomfortable situations and keeping myself there until I get comfortable. So when I first thought about sitting in an ice bath for 3 minutes, I was like, "Ooh, that is a long time." But then next thing you know, the 3 minutes was up, and I was like, I could do another round of this right now. Like, I could keep it going. Like, let's run it back. So it's just a reminder our bodies are capable of more than we give it credit to. And the more we allow ourselves to feel how we feel and be honest with ourselves about how we feel, the easier that energy will flow out of us. We give ourselves space and room to respond and choose what we want to do next. Don't force yourself to do self care rituals if that is not for you. Like, for what I needed in that moment was to journal, was to talk to God. But what you might need in that moment might be different. Maybe you need to go take a walk and get some fresh air. Maybe you need to take a shower. Maybe you need to eat some food. The important thing is, like I said, if you're honest with yourself about how you're feeling, you'll know exactly what it is that you need in that moment. But one thing I will say is necessary is you have to breathe. You have to take a breath. We're going to do some breathing at the end of this video, okay? Lastly, I want to just say to live your life. It is okay to just live your life, to just enjoy yourself, to just exist in the pleasures and the joys of life. You don't have to take everything so seriously. Everything doesn't need to be about improving and fixing and being better. Sometimes you can just be goofy. Sometimes you could just be a big ass kid, and that is okay. That is enough. It's like we're so caught up at improving ourselves, we forget that we're improving ourselves to live a life. My vibe right now is just living life. Live your fucking life. Have fun. Take the risks. Try new things. Look dumb. Put yourself in places where you maybe can do something that's a little embarrassing and be okay. It's so freeing. It's so freeing to just live and to just not even be obsessed about everybody else's perspective and opinions and whatever of you, to just live, to not be self critical, to not submit to that negative little voice in your body, to just connect with that inner child and do all the things that you used to love to do, the things that maybe you were scared to do or didn't get to do and always wanted to try. It's important that in our journeys, we get offline and we live in the real world, right? Because there's nothing like real world experience to actually learn from. It's great to watch these YouTube videos. I love that you guys are here watching. It's great to listen to a podcast. It's great to read a book, but there's nothing like just getting in the world and living your life. I swear I've learned the best lessons from just living my life and learning what I need naturally. So, before we get into today's takeaways, I want to take a few moments to do a little bit of a breathing exercise. Find a comfortable seat, lay on the ground, lay in your bed, whatever it is you need. Get comfortable, put yourself in a comfortable position for like the next 60 seconds and do some breathing with me. If you're feeling spicy, close your eyes for a second. Now, deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. The important part of this is to try to breathe into your belly area. So maybe put your hand on your stomach. Maybe add your hand to your chest. Feel it go from your belly into your chest, up through your head. Now, a couple times on your own, do that breathing. And I promise, anytime you're in a situation where you're feeling emotionally overwhelmed, return to your breath. Take those deep breaths, feel it from your core. It helps me, and I really, really, really hope that it helps you. Today's takeaways, or today's little like question to ponder, thing to journal about, is what is the difference to you between healing and fixing? Are they both one and the same? Why is that? Are they both different? Why is that? Maybe the things that we go through actually happen for us and not to us. It helps remove you out of that victim space and places you in a position of control, to show you and remind you that you have control over how you respond and how you move through life, even if you lack control over the outside circumstances. But that is all I have for you today. Thank you so, so much for sitting with me through another video. And of course, as always, I will be here next week. So love you. Have a beautiful day. Beautiful people. Bye.